Hey, how's it going? I'm Skitty Beans, and today we're going to be watching Are Dire Wolves Really Back? I have seen like this all over everywhere about the dire wolves and stuff, so I did come across this video from I don't know if you guys know this channel is called Wild World. Um and it's kind of talking about more, I guess, an in-depth of like how this all came about, and I guess the research lab that uh has made these claims, and how I guess they have all kinds of like crazy DNA that maybe they're trying to make clones of or something. I don't know. But I thought maybe this would be interesting. And since this is kind of like trending, I thought maybe we could get some better insight on it. So yeah, this is Wild World. So be sure to go and like and subscribe to their channel. I will have the video linked in my description below. And if you get a chance, I would appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe. It would help me out a bunch. And we also have some merch now, so if that's something that you're interested in, you can go check it out. It should be down below the video somewhere. You can go see the couple designs that we have so far. But so thank you guys. Thank you for everything, being here, watching, liking, subscribing, everything. I really do appreciate y'all. So all right, let's see if dire wolves are really back, or if this was just all a hoax and buzzwords. All right, I'm ready. Let's go.
So, if you've been on social media or anywhere on the internet really in the last few days, you've probably seen a lot of headlines about direwolves are back or howling for the first time in 10,000 years.
That is the video that I saw, was them. It said like dire wolves howling for the first time in 10,000 years. That is exactly what I saw.
As apparently, Colossal Biosciences, an organization that's famously been working on bringing back the thylacine and the woolly mammoth, successfully cloned some.
I wonder how this works. Like, as far as trying to bring these back, I mean, it'd be crazy. This is like some Jurassic Park type stuff, though. I don't know. It seems a little, seems a little scary.
Been working on bringing back the thylacine and the woolly mammoth, successfully cloned some dire wolves. But did they really? Well, they kinda ish maybe did. But let's take a quick look and dive.
Kinda ish maybe did. Oh god, that doesn't sound very confident.
Well, they kinda ish maybe did. But let's take a quick look and dive a little deeper. So, Colossal, what did they do and how did they do it? A lot of direwolf fossils have been found in the La Brea tar pits in California, but apparently there wasn't really good DNA samples to take from there. But luckily for Colossal, they were able to get direwolf samples from an international study, and they were able to recover more DNA. Apparently they used a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old ear bone.
Oh my gosh. It's so wild how like we can find stuff from that long ago. I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But god damn. This is kind of neat looking though. Oh, it's pretty cool.
They used a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old ear bone and were able to sequence the DNA. And specifically, they were able to look for differences between dire wolves and gray wolves. Then, they used CRISPR technology, which can edit genes, and they edited genomes of a gray wolf. Specifically, they made about 20 alterations to make
The good old CRISPR machine. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Let's Build a Zoo, but it's a video game and you run a zoo and it has the CRISPR machine in it. But you can make like abominations out of it. Like it had me like I think one of the like quests or tasks on there was to like make a snake rabbit or something, and so it has a snake body and rabbit. I don't know, it's you can make like abominations with it. But that's all I could think of when I hear CRISPR now.
and they edited genomes of a gray wolf. Specifically, they made about 20 alterations to make it more dire wolf-like. This included making it larger with a broader head and thicker white fur. When they had the edited.
So is it like a wolf that has some dire wolf genes but they're not actually dire wolves, right? Is that what he's getting at? like they're some like is that where the kind of sort of comes in? Is that they're like because they have some genetics of the dire wolf, but not completely.
Included making it larger with a broader head and thicker white fur. When they had the edited genetic material, they put it into an egg cell from a domestic dog. Then, when the embryos were developed, they put them into surrogate dogs, and about 62 days later, they got some wolves. There are 3 so far: Romulus and Remus, born in October of 2024, and Khaleesi, named from Game of Thrones, of course, born on January 30th, 2024.
They're pretty cute though. I like the Khaleesi. That's a sweet name. They are awfully cute. They're really pretty. They're gorgeous.
Khaleesi, named from Game of Thrones, of course, born on January 30th, 2025. Cool. So what is the issue? We have 3 direwolves, right? Well, it was a little odd to me at first that they decided to go with grey wolves and use grey wolf DNA because, well, direwolves weren't actually wolves.
What? They weren't actually wolves. Okay. Now my mind's gonna get blown, isn't it?
Direwolves were a species of animal that went extinct about 12 to 13,000 years ago. While their common name is still direwolf, a study in 2021 examining the mitochondrial DNA of direwolves discovered they diverged from the lineage of true wolves about 5.6 million years ago.
5.6 million years ago of true wolves? Oh, damn. Okay, so we're going back.
In fact, the researchers suggested removing the direwolf from the genus Canis and suggested instead the genus Enosion, meaning terrible wolf. That 2021 paper also stated that canids like wolves and coyotes can create hybrids. Direwolves couldn't make hybrids, at least not with any other canids that remain alive today. In fact, that might have been part of the reason they went extinct.
Oh, so like how maybe some other wolves came about because they were hybrids, and then, over time, then we started getting different kinds of wolves, like gray wolves and, like whatever else from that. Dogs are like huskies. Does that count? Do huskies count? But so then, so then they couldn't really breed with any other types of wolf types, I guess, other than themselves. So that would be like oddly specific and probably make it really hard to keep their population going depending.
Alive today. In fact, that might have been part of the reason they went extinct. Quote, hybridization couldn't provide a way out because direwolves were probably unable to produce viable offspring with the recently arrived wolves from Eurasia. Since they were somewhat different genetically, does a few modifications of a grey wolf really count? The thing is,
Oh yeah, that is a good question. Would you think it counts, or would you just say this is, you know, like a new species of wolf that has dire wolf genetics in them, but they're not dire wolves, like 1 to 1.
it is difficult to say how many differences there really are. Colossal Biosciences haven't released the complete sequenced genome of the direwolf yet, but Beth Shapiro from Colossal said the 2 species share 99.5% DNA, which sounds like a lot. But as New Scientist pointed out in an article, the grey wolf genome is around 2.4 billion base pairs long. That still leaves room for millions of base pairs of differences. Not
Oh, okay. So that is a little bit deceiving when you look at it from that perspective of, 99.5% seems pretty accurate, pretty good. But I guess when you look at it from that perspective of we could still have billions of strands that are still not, um, then would you classify them as being like as close to a dire wolf? That's a good question. He raises some really good questions in this.
pairs long. That still leaves room for millions of base pairs of differences. Not only that, but remember the 20 modifications they made to make them more like direwolves? Well, Beth Shapiro also stated in the interview that 5 of those 20 changes are based on mutations known to produce light coats in grey wolves.
Oh, so so 5 of those were basically cosmetic changes so that they would resemble dire wolves, but they were like genetically modified to look like that. Oh yeah. That that could I could see that like from a science point being a little bit problematic.
Are based on mutations known to produce light coats in gray wolves. So really, there are only 15 changes based on the direwolf genome directly, which, when I first read the story, it sounded like they had genetically engineered some gray wolves to superficially look kind of like direwolves. But
Yeah, that's kind of what I would agree with him though. Like if I had read that and seen that, I probably would have came to the same conclusion. Unless I guess then you got to dig deeper maybe.
engineered some gray wolves to superficially look kind of like dire wolves, but hadn't really brought the dire wolf back. That's not to try and take away from anything that they have done. I think it is a very impressive achievement. I don't know if it's correct to call these animals dire wolves, and some scientists are disputing that they should be called dire wolves.
I get that too. I almost feel like maybe they should have their own name. You know, like this is like a new species of wolf that I mean, you could say that they have direwolf DNA in them, but like I don't know. I I I I can see the argument in it, and I would probably agree with them more of saying that like, you know, maybe this isn't, you know, true dire wolves and maybe you just name them something different.
If you read the interview on New Scientists, this question is kind of put to Beth Shapiro, and it almost sounds like this is a bit of a touchy subject, maybe. She said that it all comes down to how you define species, and quote, species concept are human classification systems, and everybody can disagree, and everyone can be right. She then went on to say, you can use the phylogenetic species concept to determine what you're going to call a species, which is what you are implying, but then stated, we are using the morphological species concept and saying, if they look like this animal, then they are the animal.
I don't know how I feel about that kind of statement. uh, Especially for science and like species, animals, insect, you know, everything. I don't know how I feel about that kind of statement. That seems like you're trying to maybe make your make your creation or point more valid when it may be a little bit more deceiving than it should be. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally off base.
And I mean, who am I to say anything really? I'm just trying to learn more about classification systems that we use. But from
Yeah.
what I've read, it seems that phylogenetics nowadays is the more accepted way to determine species rather than morphology. So, just really quickly, phylogenetics is more classifying organisms based on evolutionary history and their genetic relationships.
See, like that actually, like I mean that in I guess from somebody who knows like zero about any of this stuff, but I would say that that seems like a better classification system than um having species classified as morphing as like whether it's I don't know is when you talk about morphing like that, is that even natural at that point? Like is that a natural thing or is it unnatural? Whereas this is like evolution, right? So that's just like a natural evolution of how animals and people, like even people, you know, change over the years. Yeah, I don't know. This is very interesting.
Classifying organisms based on evolutionary history and their genetic relationships, so we could use DNA analysis to determine their ancestry. But then morphology categorizes them based on how they look, their physical traits, and their structure. And this was
Oh,
used a lot more before phylogenetics became more dominant. For me,
okay. So the other one is more based on how they look. Or the other one's like what they're made up of. I'm guessing like what do they all share in common with their DNA and stuff like that. Which seems like if you're in the scientific field, that would probably make more sense.
I kind of think of morphology as a good start. Physical
Oh
similarities
yeah.
can certainly be a good basis, and they can be useful, especially for fossils. But phylogenetics, again looking at like genetic data and the DNA, seems like a more reliable way to classify organisms.
Yeah, I agree with him. I totally agree with this.
Thing about morphology, the statement, if they look like that animal, then they are that animal, is that convergent evolution doesn't abide by this rule. I mean, by that logic, wolves and hyenas, well, they look kind of similar.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I think then you would end up with like kind of like a weird result of things if that's how we base it off of now. Especially like everything that we can do now seems like that is, like he said, a good basis, especially if you are going off of like fossils and stuff like that. Like obviously kind of lets you start somewhere. But then using his logic here, like, yeah, like wolves and hyenas look pretty similar, but we, as we know, they are anything but. So, yeah, that's it. That is an interesting statement that she kind of put out there about the dire wolves.
Are they the same kind of animal? Are they very closely related? No, not really. I just don't know if I'd consider these animals direwolves. But I guess it depends who you ask. Love Dalen, a professor who is an advisor to Colossal, said, quote, "There's no secret that across the genome, this is 99.9% gray wolf. There is going to be an argument in the scientific community
99.9% gray wolf. Oh, okay. Okay.
99.9% gray wolf. There is going to be an argument in the scientific community regarding how many genes need to be changed to make a direwolf. But this
I mean, I guess that's a good point too. Like, at what point do you say it's a gray wolf, and at what point do you say it's a dire wolf? But like he was saying earlier, because they have there's billions of strands of DNA within there. I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know how you navigate those numbers and like try to come to, I guess, maybe like a universal decision of how much is enough to be considered one or the other.
regarding how many genes need to be changed to make a direwolf. But this is really a philosophical question. They also stated that it carries direwolf genes, and these genes make it look more like a direwolf than anything we've seen in the last 13,000 years. And that is very cool. The thing
Yeah.
is, a part of the story is being a little bit ignored, and I think it's the most important part.
Oh.
I think the best thing about colossal bioscience is that the technology of gene editing can be used not only to, quote, bring back animals, but it can also help save animals that are on a collision course with extinction. A little while ago, I got to go to a wolf sanctuary and get face to face with a few gray wolves, but I also learned just how endangered red wolves are. I talked a little bit more about it on the podcast, but the technology that Colossal uses could actually be used to help increase the genetic diversity of the limited populations of red wolves.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, they could save them. I didn't know red wolves were in trouble with their population. That's news to me. I mean, I mean, making these videos, I learn something new every day. So, I mean, that's nothing new. But that is a very good point though, that they that Colossal could do probably really amazing things for some of the species that are having problems and having some population issues.
In fact, Beth Shapiro even said in an interview with Scientific American, yields cells that are easier to reprogram than those that come from skin, and could thus be a better way of diversifying the red wolf gene pool. And there was another
Oh,
quote from Colossal's chief animal officer in that same interview where he states it's actually using technology to prevent species from going extinct. I think
I mean that's actually like that statement actually goes kind of hard. You know, I mean that I feel like that statement kind of carries quite a bit of weight to it, as far as what we can do to save some of these. Like we could definitely do some good with it for sure.
actually using technology to prevent species from going extinct. I think many people don't realize that a large part of Colossal's goal is conserving endangered species. They are hoping to reintroduce the white rhino and have developed vaccines for Asian elephants in captivity. I
Oh wow. So like that's good. Like that's really cool. Gosh, I remember hearing about white rhinos like I want to say even like in I don't know, like elementary school or middle school maybe hearing about them and like even this is like a long time ago for me. But back in my day, I do remember hearing about that though.
used the white rhino and have developed vaccines for Asian elephants in captivity. I think these projects may not be as interesting. I mean, I had to search them to find out more, but on the other hand, the woolly mouse and the direwolf blew up all my news feeds for a few.
I mean, I guess, it's that's probably not as exciting to people as seeing dire wolves and woolly mammoths, right? Unfortunately. Unfortunately. I mean, I think that what they're doing for animals that are going extinct and stuff like that is extremely, extremely important. But I think for the average person who's like maybe not super invested into it, doesn't find it interesting, even though it's super important. But you hear like dire wolf, you hear woolly mammoth, like that's exciting, right? So sadly, um, it's that's like what's more entertaining to people, which we should all care about certain species like going extinct, and if they could save them, like that would be huge. Like to me, like that's exciting and that's huge. But I get, you know, the average person who maybe isn't as invested in animals as we are, it's probably not as exciting as seeing a baby dire wolf, right? So I kind of get it, and it definitely sucks. It's pretty shitty.
But on the other hand, the woolly mouse and the direwolf blew up all my news feeds for a few days. And bringing back the woolly mammoth seems to take over headlines every few years. By the way, the colossal mammoth, if they do create it, will be kind of like the direwolf in that it will be an elephant that is genetically modified to superficially look like a mammoth.
Right. Yeah, I would assume that too. Which I mean, I guess in hindsight, it seems kind of cool because maybe we can, this will be like the closest thing we'll get to be able to see some of these animals that haven't been around for, thousands, if not millions of years. So, I mean, that is kind of cool. But at the same time, I mean, if they're gonna come out and be like, oh yeah, like this is a woolly mammoth, just like this is a dire wolf, instead of like, I don't know, like I feel like these animals should be maybe classified as something of their own, where it's pretty distinctual of like, they yes, they have like these DNA mappings and genetics from fossils from billions of years ago, but it's not a one-to-one.
Altering genes to give it more hair, more fat, and shorter ears, maybe a few other things. Some have even started calling the hypothetical creature a mammothant. Anyway, I feel like the
Mammothant.
direwolf and the woolly mouse are kind of like proof of concept, but also they, as well as the mammoth and the thylacine, are pretty good at getting attention and entering the media circle. Again, a lot of other work they do really doesn't get much attention, even though it's very important. I'd
Yeah, I would agree with him for sure that the not so exciting stuff is definitely important.
work they do really doesn't get much attention, even though it's very important. I'd argue more important. But you need investors, you need to capture the public's attention. And these
That is a good point too. That is a good point.
stories are a bit of a masterclass in marketing. I don't really feel any cynicism or anger to the direwolf headlines, even though I might not consider them to be direwolves. I'm just glad Colossal gets more attention. There are many other foundations and charities that also do great work that I really wish were able to get their message out and get.
This is true too. Like I'm definitely not like dogging on him by any means. Like I'm just saying like from what he said in this video definitely raises some questions. He makes some really good points, but I also see that Colossal's obviously doing good things for not just, fossils or animals that were from, that are strictly like millions and millions of years old, that like they're trying to do good for a lot of different animals, and I think that that's great, and I think that that's important. And I guess too, at the end of the day, if you do what you got to do to try to, get the funding and have that kind of attention to do like these much more important, better things, then, like maybe the trade-off is worth it. But I do see the different perspectives of this and like where these people are coming from both sides of like, like yes, we got a dire wolf, to like the more skeptical scientists, to this man on that we're watching. It does kind of make a little bit of a cluster of, maybe misinformation and people taking things at face value, and uh totally believing that we have like pure dire wolves. But I get it. I totally get it. I'm not dogging on them at all, because I think that what they're doing is amazing. Like the what they're doing for endangered species, like totally important, totally admirable of them to be doing, and they do deserve to have a lot of attention for sure.
Get more attention the way Colossal does, but it's hard. The other thing is, these wolves, whatever you want to call them, what will happen to them? I was briefly chatting to the YouTuber Shark Toes on Twitter, great channel by the way, you should look him up,
Oh,
and he brought up some pretty good points about if they are adapted to their environment and how would they interact with other predators and prey species. Good questions, and I don't really know, and I
those are good questions. And could they breed with other wolves, or would there be something in the dire wolf genetic that would make them not be able to? So could you potentially have them, or I mean, like when he was talking about how their offspring doesn't have good survival rates, was that because of like the babies themselves like don't do well and don't usually survive, or is it like a predator thing where like they were just getting like eaten up really easily? So that does raise a lot of questions as far as what these wolves future is going to be like.
don't know if any of us know yet, but the wolves are currently in an undisclosed, fenced-off area. Apparently it's hundreds of acres large. And Beth Shapiro said they didn't have any plans to breed them further, which leads me to believe these animals will never be fully reintroduced into the wild. Or introduced into the wild. I guess they're kind of new animals.
Yeah.
I think that's probably for the best, since we are still trying.
That is probably true too. Like maybe, I know like it's probably kind of cruel, but maybe it is for the best that they don't that like this might be just for research purposes. And I guess if they're living somewhere that has hundreds of acres and they can kind of, be wolves there, then that doesn't seem so bad either.
Wild. I guess they're kind of new animals. I think that's probably for the best, since we are still trying to figure out if we should even reintroduce grey wolves back into certain areas, and that can get pretty controversial. So adding these genetically modified larger wolves into the conversation will probably only complicate things further. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Regardless of what they are, I hope these animals have nice lives and wherever their home
Yeah,
is.
I do
Anyway,
too.
just a short video this time. Anyone out there ever planning to make videos about dire wolves, look forward to all the comments you're going to get about colossal bioscience. But anyway, thank you to all my wonderful patrons and members, and thank you.
Oh, well, this was great. This was very informative because I honestly, totally believed it. I saw the photos and videos on Instagram and, just kind of like all over the internet. And I kind of took it as face value to be fair. And I was like, damn, I was like, that's pretty cool. So this was a really good video. He does raise a lot of really good questions, and definitely has some good input and insights to this. I really enjoyed this a lot. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to go and like and subscribe to Wild World. This was a great video. He seems like he's very perceptive and intuitive and very smart. He seems like a pretty cool guy. I really thought this video was great. So be sure to go and support him. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.